It's Wednesday evening. You're listening to Mystic Moon Cafe with Wendy Schindler and Travis Short. Every week, we will interview guests that are experts in various fields of the supernatural, paranormal, unexplained, and esoteric. So sit back and let us take you on a journey to educate, enlighten, and entertain as we broaden your horizons. Now, here's your hosts, Wendy Schindler and Travis Short.
Sorry about that. Extreme technical issues had us kind of running for cover for a moment, but I think it's all fixed up now. Although I can't figure out why I'm modulating while Travis is... That's weird. I hope our sound's okay.
Am I still modulating?
You are, but you're modulating while I'm talking.
That's not cool.
That's weird. Anyway, I'm guessing it's all good now. I have no idea. Where's our Carly? She's usually here to help us out. She's not even in chat. Fine. Speak, Travis.
I'm here. How is... I was going to say, how is your day going? I kind of know how the last 15 minutes are going.
Well, you know, it's kind of been that type of, I don't know, decade.
A decade-long 15 minutes.
That's right.
Damn.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's severe.
That is severe. But my Augie came down and said hi, so, you know, it's all better.
Well, that makes everything better.
Of course it does. Now, Dakota's sitting there looking at the door like maybe Augie's going to try to come back into his lair, so, you know. Yeah. German shepherds and their mamas. Anyway, well, Travis, are you with me, or
I'm with you.
How was your day? How did your interview today go?
You know, actually, it was a really good interview, very interesting interview. I interviewed a guy today, his documentary filmmaker. His name is Steve Middleton. He's a professor at Morehead State University there in Morehead, Kentucky, and he's done a documentary film called Between the Rock and the Commonwealth, and it's about this landmark called Indian Head Rock that sat kind of in the middle of the Ohio River between Portsmouth, Kentucky, or Portsmouth, Ohio, rather, and like Greenup, Kentucky, Ironton, Ashland, that area on the Kentucky side of the Ohio River. And actually, this landmark disappeared 87 years ago. The last time it was seen was 1920, it was right. Well, it was right. Well, it was right before they actually raised the level of the Ohio River artificially with the dams and levees. Mm-hmm. So the water level raised about 20 feet, and the rock was buried. And it had actually been part of Portsmouth, Ohio's tourism, and it was people would swim from the Ohio side out to the middle of the Ohio River and carve their initials in the rock and swim back, and it naturally would appear and disappear with the rising and the falling of the Ohio River naturally. But when they artificially raised the level of the Ohio, it disappeared in 1920 and had been lost for 87 years. And this gentleman by the name of Steve Schaefer, who is a resident of Portsmouth, Ohio, had grown up hearing stories about this rock. And actually, there are accounts of it dating back to the late 1700s, early 1800s in not pilgrims, but pioneers and settlers and travelers through the Ohio River area would write and talk about it. Mm-hmm. And so this guy had grown up with these stories, and so he decided to go and search for it. So he put a dive team together, and they spent 3 years diving the Ohio River until they found it. And it was about 20 feet underwater, and they actually used a series of air bladders to raise it to the surface. Okay. And they brought it to land, and of course, the news media was there. They covered it, and he was received accolades there in Ohio. Kentucky was not so happy. They indicted him.
Oh, okay.
For theft of a natural historic landmark and an antiquity. Mm-hmm. And were threatening him with 20 years in federal prison.
Wow.
And they're actually from 2008 until about 2012, there was this legal and legislative battle that took place between Ohio and Kentucky over who owned the rock. And the deciding factor, this was something I had no idea. Even all the research that I did for the Mothman documentary, being on the Ohio River there, between Ashland, Kentucky, and Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and Gallipolis, Ohio, and all that time I spent on the Ohio River, never knew that the Commonwealth of Kentucky owns the Ohio River.
Wow.
Yes. They own the Ohio River from the Kentucky shoreline to the Ohio shoreline.
That's really interesting. I, for some reason, would have thought that would be like an international waterway.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Exactly. But when Virginia, West Virginia, and Kentucky were all one state, the state of what was supposed to have been the state of Franklin,
mm-hmm.
And then they started carving out West Virginia and Kentucky from Virginia. The dividing borderline between Kentucky and what became Ohio was the Ohio River, and that was ceded to Kentucky.
Interesting.
To become their boundary.
Mm-hmm.
So the rock ended up in Greenup County, Kentucky, where it's sitting in a warehouse and absolutely nothing's being done with it. But a very interesting, I like tidbits of historical information that kind of sit and make you go, huh.
Sure.
And this was one of those. So it was a fun interview. The guy was very entertaining. He was very interesting. So I actually, I encourage folks. It's not available on DVD yet. It's going to air June 14th on public television in Ohio. They got the rights to it first. Okay. And then the following month, July, it is going to air in Kentucky on KET, Kentucky Educational Television. And then it will air simultaneously on both those stations for several months before it's made available to the public.
That's
but
wild.
A very interesting kind of documentary film. I watched it last night.
Mm-hmm.
He sent me a link to his private Vimeo account so I could actually watch it before it went live.
Ooh, nice. I may
share the link with you so you can see it.
Ooh, that would be cool. That would be ultra cool.
So, but it was a very busy day today, and Wednesdays are always my long days. So,
well, sure.
Yeah. So, but and last night was one of those nights when I closed my eyes. Mm-hmm. I swear to God, my alarm was going off.
I hate those days.
It was like, I closed my eyes. Mm-hmm. I rolled over, and my alarm's going off. I'm like, what?
Liar, it's not that time.
What? I look out the window and see the sun. I'm like, no, go the hell away. This is not, I have not slept enough for this.
Right.
So, and technical problems at the radio station. I had, yesterday, my, board operator in the evening, mm-hmm. Or actually, it was actually the day before, so on Memorial Day, she had gotten the headset cord that runs from the headset to the board wrapped around the roller on her rolling chair, and she pushed herself away from the board, and she just yanked and jerked the headset jack out of the board and like broke everything, and like crap fell into the board, and so I tried yesterday taking a look at it, seeing what I can do, and actually had to call the engineer in. We had to take the board apart, and actually she had ripped wires loose. She had done a number on the jack in the control board, and so we had to put the wires back together, solder them back together, and then put the board back together and wait for a little while and make sure everything was working. So it was just one of those days, and it had to be one of those days when the owner was there.
Well, of course.
All this, and the engineer is a consulting engineer, a freelance engineer. So he bills us, a premium every time he's called on site. So, here I've had to call him out, and the owner is there, and, he's like, why is the engineer here? Why am I paying it? It's like, well, you're paying him because we have an idiot who jerked the headset out of the board. But it was just one of those days. End of the month, closing the month out, starting a new month, all that good stuff. fun.
Well, did the woman retain her job or get a stern talking to at least?
Well, all of my board operators have a board shift check sheet.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to go through and check off everything that they do. And at the bottom of that check sheet, I give them troubleshooting notes or a place to make notes. If there's any problems, if there's anything they need to report, they put it on that. And I check those every morning when I come in.
Okay.
And so luckily for her, she had put down exactly what had happened on her sheet.
Okay.
Had she not put down what had happened on her sheet, she would have been in a lot more trouble.
Okay.
But because she had actually gone ahead and fessed up and said, this is what happened, I'm sorry.
Sometimes shit just happens.
Sometimes shit just happens. And so, and part of it was, I'm going to say, management's problem, because the headset cords are actually very long, and they're meant to be long because we need the board operators to have a fairly wide radius of movement back and forth in the boardroom. But we actually today, we went in and actually shortened those cords so this won't happen again.
Okay.
So, yay, yes, right?
Yay!
So.
Alrighty. Well, shall we play our song and get our guests on and we can...
Absolutely. What song are we playing again? I listened to it, but I can't...
We can either listen to The Late Night Callers, Calaveras, or Butte La Rose by the Delta Saints. Which would you prefer?
Ooh.
I know, right?
Tough call. Delta Saints.
Okay. Butte La Rose. It's about 5 minutes, so you'll have plenty of time to get the kids on the line. Do you want me to unplug so you can hear it, or no? Does that distract you when you're trying to talk to them?
It's a little distracting when trying to talk and get things. So we'll just leave it.
Okay.
I'll set a timer. You say it's about 5?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Here we go. Butte La Rose. All right. What is this? Oh.
"15 feet, that water gon' rise. 15 feet, my heart sink low. Down low, baby, take my soul. In this dirt, Lord, I'll be so beautiful, 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 beautiful. Take this man, take him home. Beautiful. Drown out the cold. Leave me with the flame, singing hallelujah, preaching about the lifted stain. Water rising up my back door. Where's this guy? Butte La Rose, river gonna rise and that water gonna flow. Wash me down, wash me low. Butte La Rose, Butte La Rose, Butte La Rose, river gonna rise. Butte La Rose, baby, don't you drown. My heart sinking low. My soul is whole, never gonna know. Butte La Rose. down, down real low. Baby, don't drown, come and tell me so. Build the rose in your hand. Build the rose, I'll be your man. Build the rose. Water gon' rise 15 high. My heart is sinking low. My soul is yours and never gon' grow. Build the rose.
And that was Butte La Rose by the Delta Saints. I believe we've got everybody on the line now. Guys, are you there?
Well, I'm here, and
Okay.
I think I have Richard and Cami with me. At least they were with me in what I call the audio green room, where only the three of us exist. It's like it's like Spreaker Purgatory is basically what it is.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, it's just the three of us were there waiting for some good deed to bring us to the live audience. That's exactly what's been going on.
And I am that
So
good
I was
deed.
actually you are the producer extraordinaire. That's what you are. No, I was explaining to them, just the technical problems that, when we chose Spreaker as the platform, it had a lot of really good options. Skype was my least favorite of those options just because of its unreliability.
Mm-hmm.
That you never. Skype literally has a mind of its own. It is like Skynet. I see. This is what the Terminator is fighting against in all of those movies. This
Yes,
Skype
it is.
an iteration of that.
Yes, most definitely.
So yes, but we do have Richard on, and Richard Estep, and we have Cami Andersen on, and they are co-authors of the Haunting at Asylum 49, among other books. Richard has several. We'll talk to him about those.
Mm-hmm.
Cami is working on her next endeavor as an author. But it's good to have them back on. We had them on sometime last year. I think probably in the summer, actually, last year when we were on our other platform.
Yes.
So it's good to have them back on with us now that we have moved to this better platform. Much more exposure, many more listeners, both live and downloads and things like that. So it's been a good move.
Definitely. Well, welcome,
thank you
Cami.
for having us.
Welcome,
Thanks
Richard.
for having us back on.
Mm-hmm.
Thank
you
you.
for coming
Yeah,
back
it's
on.
a pleasure to be here.
Good.
So since we have last talked, what have you guys been into? What's up? What are we working on right now? And then we'll kind of work backwards from there.
So I'm going to propose that when we have a question tonight, Cami goes first, just ladies first, so we don't end up talking over each other. Cami?
Okay.
All right. I'll go ahead and do that then. We are currently in the process of working on a couple of books together. We're going to be doing a book on the world's most haunted ships and volume 2 of the Haunting of Asylum 49.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you talk about haunted ships, now are these going to be ships that you actually are going and visiting, or are you just doing research on them?
We're going to try to do both. There are a lot of them that are fairly close to us and that are willing to let us come out and do some investigations. And there are some that are very far away that we can't get to, and we're going to do the best research that we can on those.
And there are some that are at the bottom of a lot of water.
Right.
Oh, okay. So not going to tour those is what you're saying.
Well, Cami's
Right.
a scuba diver, but I'm not, so she can have all those.
Yeah, I would love to. I do love to dive. I love to go and see wreckage, but a lot of them are fairly deep, so they're not very accessible.
Nice.
Yeah,
Are you certified in the scuba diving then, but just not the deep water dives or however that goes?
Right, not the deep water. I can do open water, just not ultra deep water.
Okay.
That's not a thing that I'm trained on just yet. But I don't live anywhere near an ocean, so it's very hard to find those deep waters in Utah.
Yeah. Right. I don't either.
I was going to say, not a lot of call for scuba diving in Salt Lake City or thereabouts, anywhere in Utah, as a matter of fact.
No, the largest body of water we have is the Great Salt Lake, and you can pretty much walk across that.
Right, so not really scuba diving territory, and not a lot of sunken ships in that particular Great Salt Lake either.
Very few. Very few.
So, and then you said you're working on Chapter 2 of The Haunting at Asylum 49?
Right. We recently acquired the whole hospital. Last time we talked to you, we had just a small portion of the hospital. The hospital is about 216,000 square feet, and up until just a few months ago, we had 38,000 square feet of that to investigate, and that's what all the activity we experienced based our book on. On the other portion of it, there was an active nursing home, and we bought the whole building about 3 years ago, and a few months ago, like I said, they were able to move into a new location, and we were able to get access to the entire hospital and do some investigating there.
You know, it's always cracked me up that you had a haunted hospital with a nursing home, a functioning nursing home adjacent to it.
I know. A lot of people are like, that just doesn't make any sense, Cami.
It's like hauntings in waiting, or ghosts waiting to happen kind of thing. You know, it's like just kind of there in their own little green room waiting to move to the next level. That's just kind of wrong.
Waiting to move on.
Exactly.
Well, you know, a good thing is that we were very separated by a very long hall, so we didn't really have any interaction with them. We just kind of kept to ourselves. So we really, in fact, before they vacated the building, we were able to get over there. I didn't even know how many rooms there were. I didn't know how many halls there were. I didn't know the state of anything there because we kept so far away and just let them do their thing. Because people were living there. There was hospice there and family members there. So we just kind of kept to ourselves. And it was a nice surprise to get over there finally and see that we really have a hidden gem.
That's pretty cool. So now, kind of an off-the-wall question. You mentioned 216,000 square feet. Does this make you one of the largest actively haunted locations in the U.S.?
I'm not sure as far as other actively haunted locations. I don't know the square footage to say, for example, like Waverly Hills, who has several floors. We only have one floor that's an active building. The rest is, we have a basement, of course, but that's where all the utilities and the boiler system and things like that are. But I know that we are in the state of Utah.
Okay. So a nice little feather in your cap.
Right. It's a good place to be right now.
Good for you guys. Now, Richard, I know in our previous segment with you guys, you had mentioned that publicly, and of course I think you even stated in the book, that Asylum 49 is one of your favorite, not necessarily the favorite, but one of your favorite places to investigate.
Oh, I'd be quite willing to say it's my favorite. But that's for a multitude of reasons. Largely because the people there have come to feel like family to us, to my team and I. So we make the trek out there every year at least once, usually at Halloween when the building's at its most active. And it really is like coming to see family and friends. And so, it's always a great experience and it's a great place to go. In terms of the haunting itself, though, too, it's such a great story and there are so many characters that populate the old hospital that it never seems to get old. So,
for like I said, we have gained a very new audience and a lot of first time listeners to the program. Cami, I'm going to ask this question of you, and that is to kind of give us a little bit of the history of Asylum 49. And then, Richard, I want to ask you, to kind of tell us how you came into the picture and how you guys formed this partnership of investigating and authoring the first book and now working on the second one. So, Cami, my question is first to you, which is kind of give us a little bit of the backstory on the hospital, the facility itself.
All right. So the hospital was the community hospital in a small town outside of Salt Lake City called Tooele. And it's just nestled in between these beautiful mountains. But there was nothing here in Tooele for a very long time, just regular, like, small clinics, and there was even doctors that did house calls up until 1953 when the hospital opened its doors. So it was a very, very exciting time for the little town of Tooele and Tooele County itself. It was, like I said, the community hospital. They had the emergency room. They had labor and delivery. They have an operating area where all the surgeries took place, and then just your regular patient rooms. And until we came on the scene about 12 years ago and opened up a haunted house attraction on a portion of the hospital that the nursing home wasn't using. And the nursing home has been there for a very long time. Up until recently, I didn't know, but it was actually functioning and operating as a nursing home when the community hospital was opened. So when the community hospital built a new facility, updated it, and transferred all their equipment and departments over to the new hospital, the nursing home took it over. And that's where they've been ever since.
Very nice. I would assume with all that extra room and everything, are you going to expand the haunted house then by a whole bunch when Halloween time comes? Or what's happening there? Can you hear me okay?
No, actually, yeah, we are actually already the largest haunted house attraction in the state of Utah, so I think we've got that covered. What we're doing with some of the new portion is we are moving all of our cast rooms and our makeup department and our costume department over to a larger part of the new side. Mm-hmm. But the remainder of it is going to be kind of a community center where people can come and do yoga, kind of just like a full-on wellness center for our little town.
Very nice. Very nice. I love the work you do with the children, the youth of your town as well. That's very, very special.
Right. It's really important to have something for the youth to do. And here, if anybody knows small towns, they know that there's not a whole lot for them to do. Mm-hmm. They'll find one location that they kind of stick to and hang out there for the most part, but there really is not a whole lot. So this gives them something to do. We hope to have some virtual reality games, and we do have escape rooms already. So it's up and coming. It's a project. We're in phase one, but we'll get there.
And you and your husband run that, right? Jan?
Kim.
I'm sorry, I don't know.
Right, me and my husband, yes. Okay. And then my my niece Dusty and her husband Lyle also run it. But it was definitely Kim's baby. He grew up in the haunted house community. He was very much a wild and crazy teenager that didn't always make the best choices. And so when he came into the haunted house community, they kind of scooped him up and helped him make better choices. And he wanted to do that for the youth of our small town as well. So it's kind of his project, his number one baby. And I came in as a paranormal investigator.
That's fantastic.
Now, Cami, when you say haunted house community, you're not talking about necessarily actual haunted houses as much as you are talking about the haunted house attractions, correct?
Correct. So it's something every year. People, Halloween comes around. It's a one time a year where you can explore the darker side of yourself, and it's okay to do so. And he just kind of ran with that, and people love it. They love to come out. They love to scare people. They love to play, and they love to act. And it gives a lot of people an outlet for that personality of theirs, as well as a sense of family.
Mm-hmm. Richard, will you be actively participating in the haunted house aspect of it this year, or?
That's a great question. I have so far, and I've had a blast. I've had a terrific time doing it. Worthwhile, so I hope so.
Well, I hope so too. That cut out a little bit there. You still with me, everybody?
Yeah, we're having that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're
good.
here. We're
Good.
here.
Okay.
Yeah, we're here. So, so with adding, so you've got. I kind of jumped ahead of myself there. You've got this great facility that you guys are using both as an attraction but also as a location to do paranormal investigation, which is really cool that you have both of those worlds kind of meshing together.
Right. It was actually a very much a surprise for Kim. He was a hardcore skeptic before he started the haunted house, and it was a surprise to him to find out that it very much existed. The first time he had his pant leg tugged on, it scared him to death. He ran out of the building and didn't go back for about 2 weeks. He had to really search himself to find out if he really experienced what he thought he had.
And how bad he wanted to go back in there, right?
Right. He had to give him some courage, build himself up to get back in there.
I don't blame him.
Right. And I kind of married into it. I came in again as a paranormal investigator. And a few years later, I married Kim. I should probably write a book that says I married into ghosts or something like that.
Oh, I like it. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, it's definitely a way of life. You're constantly just immersed in the paranormal. And it's one thing that I did notice after doing investigations in other locations and then finding a home at a haunted location where I frequent all the time. I think it is a huge gift to be able to be involved in something like that as a paranormal investigator, to be able to be around it all the time, to be able to volunteer, and you really get a deeper sense of what's going on in the paranormal when you're there a lot. And I urge anybody that has a haunted location in their area to volunteer for tours or just to kind of help out with the location, because it definitely has a different element and deeper meaning of the paranormal.
They've already jumped all over the Belvoir Winery / Oddfellows home in Independence, Missouri, but I did try to volunteer out there.
Well, it's definitely a different thing. I know that Richard, before what was it, like maybe a year ago, you did a lot of locations, but you're now doing tours at the Stanley, right?
Yeah, I'm a tour guide at the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado, which was Stephen King's inspiration for The Shining, amongst other things.
Right.
Yeah, did you notice a huge difference? I've been meaning to ask you about that. Have you been able to see like a huge difference as far as being able to see things differently in the paranormal?
Well, I think a lot of it comes down to immersion, and when you're around it more frequently, like anything else, you become more aware of it. So going and doing that every week, as I tend to do, is it's definitely keeping my mind more on it, and I seem to see more things taking place.
No, I was wondering about that.
Well, Richard, I think some friends of mine and I are going to try to get out there around Labor Day. Will you be doing tours, do you think?
Labor Day this year? Actually, I won't. I'll be speaking at DragonCon in Atlanta on Labor Day weekend, I'm afraid. But if you give me a shout, I will put you in touch with the tour department, because we have excellent guides.
Okay.
And they'll give you the grand tour.
Why, thank you.
Oh, look at
Pleasure.
you.
We love
Look at
showing off our hotel.
look at Wendy getting the special treatment.
Oh,
I know, she got connections.
I got
She
connections,
does.
baby. All right, your turn, Travis. What you got?
So, Richard, how did you come into contact with Cami and Cami there, and what was it like for the first time actually investigating at Asylum?
Well, I used to be married to Kim. No, I'm kidding.
Does your wife know that?
I tried, but I was writing a book called The World's Most Haunted Hospitals, and I was doing some research and heard a great deal about the old 2 Ella Hospital. And so I reached out to Cami and to Kim And they invited me to go spend an evening there, which I did. I made a 1,000-mile round trip to go do it with a couple of my friends and colleagues, Jason Fellon and Sean Rice. And we had a very, very quiet night there. Actually, it wasn't particularly impressive at all. And when I was telling Kim and Cami about that, they said, well, the problem is you came in the spring. This place it's almost dormant, not entirely, but mostly off-season. And then when we get this flood of people coming through during the Halloween season, the activity picks up as we go through the year until we have tens of thousands of people coming through. And that's when this place is incredibly active. So they invited me to return, and I did. I'd already written the book by then, and I'd interviewed some witnesses for the chapter on Asylum 49, but I hadn't experienced a great deal myself. And I said, it's a long way to come for a weekend. And they said, why don't you come for a week? And so these very nice people that I'd met once handed me the keys to their haunted hospital and said, there you go. Come spend a week living here. And that's exactly what we did.
Did you feel like you had won the golden ticket with Willy Wonka?
You do sometimes have to pinch yourself to see if that really is the case. It's such a wonderful location. But even the first time we were there, there's something, and I say this as a very skeptical, grounded person, there's something about that place which tends to draw you back. And it's like peeling back the layers of an onion, if that makes any sense. And you always feel that there's another layer beneath and there are more answers to the questions that you're asking. And I think there's a lot of research still to be done there.
Now, you mentioned something that I find intriguing and also very, very, in a way, refreshing. You said your very first experience at Asylum wasn't very interesting or exciting, not a whole lot of activity. I think, a lot of people today, from watching reality TV shows with Ghost Hunters and Ghost Brothers and all of and Zach Bagans and all these guys, they automatically assume if they go to a haunted location, there's going to be activity, and that's just really not the case.
Well, I think that's the nature of the beast when it comes to TV, and I'll try not to soapbox. But for example, you look at a show like Chicago Fire or ER or Grey's Anatomy, something like that, and I pick those because I've been in the fire service and the emergency medical service, and 1 hour of their shows really equates to maybe 3 or 4 months in most emergency rooms or firehouses, And so there's this expectation, though, that that's the reality because people see it on TV. And I think if you look at the early years of some of those shows, you'll see that they actually had episodes where they'd say, yeah, we're really not finding much of anything. We don't know that there's any paranormal activity going on. And then when they start to become big, there is a demand to deliver. Right. And the truth is, nobody wants to sit and watch a 26-episode or even a 13-episode season where not much happened, which is the reality of paranormal investigation. You spend a lot of hours sitting on your hands waiting for something to happen. And one of the reasons Cami and I like writing books so much is that we get to be bored for you, the reader. We take the most interesting stuff.
Thank you.
We're
Thank
bored
you so
on
much.
Your behalf. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we sit there so you don't have to. And we do find some innovative ways of killing the time. You should ask Cami about the great Nerf war that we had last year.
Great Nerf war.
Yeah, but the reality of it is...
2015.
The great Nerf war? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but the reality is that what we do is very dull about 90% of the time, and nobody wants to really hear about that. But the TV show is not going to survive if that's what you show.
Right. Well, I mean, and I worked with a company in LA for a while that did reality TV shows. So I've been behind the scenes and I know how that particular process works. And it's actually more, like surreality TV. There's not really any reality there whatsoever. It's a perceived reality. But I mean, if you go back and you watch, as you mentioned, like the first season or first 2 seasons of Ghost Hunters, they didn't find shit when they went on these investigations. I mean, it was just it was just the interaction between Grant and Jason. That was what people enjoyed. And because I have talked to individuals and behind the scenes of that particular program, Sci-Fi said, you're going to have to ramp it up a bit, and there's going to have to be this, and this. in order for the show to survive. So it became, at that point, it was like every episode they were finding some type of activity, and there was something going on, and that does create, for novice paranormal researchers and investigators, it creates this false sense of hope and this false sense of what they're going to experience when they go to a site. For me, as Wendy and I were talking in kind of the intro, for me, part of the fun of any type of research is the historical context that you're dealing with. But that's me. I'm a little bit of a nerd like that. I like the historical context. I like that foundation that you're going to build upon. You know, with the exception of June, and I hope June is listening. And June, I'm not going to say brothel one time on the show tonight.
I will brothel.
June.
You're a rebel, Richard.
Brothel, June.
Drink, baby, drink.
Every time June is on the show, you know, she's investigating some location, and it always turns out to be a brothel. At the end of the story, it's some haunted brothel. Doesn't matter. I mean, it's like she finds her way.
Tell me,
there's
our next book right there. World's Most Haunted Brothel.
I think they're already working on that. I think Shane Ross.
I'll take the lead on that one. Okay. I'll do the field work. You do the research.
Yeah, exactly.
You got it.
He's eyes on the ground, Cami. You're just, all you're doing
Eyes on the ground.
is background research. That's it.
That's it. That's naturally.
Exactly. But I do think, you know, obviously, you know, we mentioned, you know, talking about brothels, and we bring it back to hospitals for just a second. There are certain buildings, certain types of facilities that obviously are going to have more paranormal and supernatural activity than others. And hospitals, by nature, because of the amount of trauma and death that go on there, are going to be hot spots, or should be hot spots, of certain paranormal activity. Now, I'm curious to find out, since you have expanded your square footage and you have expanded the facility, Cami, are you experiencing the paranormal activity in other areas? And is that unique paranormal activity to that location, or has the paranormal activity from your one location spread to this area that's now been opened up?
I think it's a little bit of all of it. We definitely do have activity on the other side, as well as the side that we've been investigating and researching for the last 10 years, 12 years now, actually. But we definitely have new people to investigate, new beings, new activity. I would say at this point, by far, the Green Mile is the most active, I think, by a landslide. And it's just a long stretch of hallway with green carpet as far as the eye could see. But it's definitely caught my attention. There's a lot of things that go on there. We were able to have a really interesting conversation, and it was fairly long, through a spirit box down the Green Mile. A lot of people were actually talking to us through that, through the spirit box. We also had, at the very top of the Green Mile, we had a door close on us. And it happened 2 nights in a row when we were investigating with Richard when he came down. And it hasn't since. So that was something that I've been watching and trying to catalog and figure out what happened those 2 nights.
Now, the type of activity that you guys are seeing there at Asylum, is it residual? Is it active? Is it demonic? I mean, have you been able to classify it through investigation?
I would say that we have residual, we have intelligent, we have, I wouldn't go as far to say demonic, but definitely some negative, either humans that just are, you know, again, as in life as in death. If you're grumpy in life, you're probably going to pass over and be grumpy in death as well if you stick around. But yeah, we definitely have a little bit of everything. I would just probably take out the demonic at this point.
Well, I was just curious. I mean, we had Bill Bean on just a couple of weeks ago, and, you know, you always get that the demonic slant with Bill. You know, there's always that particular perspective from Bill's standpoint. You know, what are you dealing with? Not necessarily that was the case as a hospital or with these individuals, but has something demonic and malevolent invaded that area. You know, what do you find with the type of spirits? Are they friendly? Are they confrontational, assertive, aggressive?
They can be a little bit of everything. I think that, like you said, perspective is a lot in terms of demonic. And I think that there are things out there that we don't quite understand yet. So it's hard to classify them, and somewhat taboo to classify them in any of the categories outside of angels, demons, or spirits. So I think that there's a lot of wiggle room and a lot of different interpretations of what those entities are. I would say that we have spirits at the hospital that are very kind, that are very communicative, very willing to help you out in your research and tell you their stories. And then we have the ones that don't want anything to do with you, and they'll try to get you out of the way by whatever means they can use. But I think a large majority of it is people wanting their stories to be told. I think there's something to be said about the theory that people have unfinished business when they cross over. One of the things that I've noticed is that whenever we're able to talk to a family member of one of the people that are at the location, at the hospital, if they talk to them, we never hear from them again. So it could be that they're just waiting around for somebody to pass on their story to a loved one or just be able to say it. And I think a lot of the work that we do is to help that move along.
Yeah, possibly.
Did that answer your question, Travis?
It did. No, it did. I was actually processing. Okay. I was processing what you were saying. Because what you're talking about is something that we do experience with the living many times in a slightly distant past of my own. In my training and serving as an ordained minister, I actually was a hospice chaplain. And I worked many times with family members, and it was amazing many times how long a person would linger between life and death, waiting on a family member to come so that they could say goodbye. And when that moment would come, when that person would arrive, and I saw this on several occasions, people that should have died hours and in some instances days sooner, they did not until a particular family member would arrive. And when that person would walk in and that person got to say their goodbyes and make their peace or whatever, that person would then pass on. And it was as if they were waiting. So I think, if that happens in life, if they're not given that opportunity, then I think it is very, very real possibility that they will wait around in the afterlife until they receive that closure, and then they are able to move on. I don't discount that at all.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I mean, we haven't had a whole lot of that happen because people don't come and visit and go ghost hunting. Not everybody does that. So you're not going to bring everybody that needs to come all at once. But you can get them every once in a while. And it's really refreshing to be able to talk with some of these family members and to see that somebody has passed on that's been there for quite some time.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Now, Richard, this is kind of directed to you. What is in store from an investigative standpoint for all of this newfound square footage and this new facility from a research and investigative standpoint?
Well, we really broke the surface when I was there in February, which was just a week or two after the retirement home vacated. In fact, they were still moving stuff out. And so we moved in and actually lived there. And I like that. I like that style of immersion. So I think as we see more and more people spending time in that facility and they start to pin down hotspots like the Green Mile, I think the next step is to start trying to identify patterns. Where are the most active areas? Where and when? What seem to be the factors involved? And then to delve a little bit deeper into that. That's what I would hope to do next.
So, what do you have a timeline and a game plan in place for doing that?
This place is so big, you could put a battalion of investigators in there and not cover it all. So really, my timeline is that as long as as long as we keep going back year after year, and as long as we can keep gathering the information, I don't see this having an end date. I see this as an ongoing, I don't want to say ghost lab, but one prolonged experiment in observation. As long as they're doing the haunted house, they're bringing the energies of people in, then this place is going to remain active, and it's an ideal time and place to investigate. It's an ongoing project in my mind.
Very cool.
You guys have mentioned the Green Mile a couple of different times. Could you explain what that is further? Cami, or?
So the Green Mile, the Green Mile is a very, very long hallway that for years separated the haunted house attraction from the nursing home. And it was on that side where we were able to enter to and from each side of the building. So there was a long period of time where we weren't able to go but a few, maybe 10, 20 feet down the Green Mile. But once we opened the door, we were able to go through there and investigate further. And the Green Mile has been an active location for years, really. And it's been a place that we've gone back to routinely to figure out what's going on there. And if you prescribe to the theory of vortexes, we've been told that there's a vortex there out that exact doorway, which is very interesting in itself. But it's for me, and for as far as our research has been, even on the new side of the Green Mile, it is the most active area in the hospital at this point.
Very nice. Okay. Next.
Well, no, I asked this question the last time, and this one is directed back at Richard. I have read your book, The Most Haunted Hospitals, and I love it. It's one of my favorites.
Thank you very much.
But if you were to place Asylum 49 on a scale of most haunted, where would it rank?
No, that's a time-dependent question. If you ask me that question in October, I'll put it at 10. If you ask me, in say January, February, March, I would put it at a 3 or a 4. There's always something to be learned there and something to be experienced. So there's definitely value in going there off-season and seeing how different things are. But I think it's more subtle during those off-season periods. And again, as the year goes on, Cami can correct me if I'm wrong, the energies seem to build, more people come through, and the entities there seem to make use of that energy.
Yes, they do. And actually, it was very interesting that you gave a timeline to that. We usually start opening the doors for ghost hunts in January. We have a very short period of downtime after the haunted house attraction where we can tear down different sets and get things cleaned up a bit and take a little bit of rest time. But then we do start doing ghost tours in January. And it is kind of quiet at first, but you do have, like you said, things that do happen. A lot of people will get their EVPs. That's very, very common. But as the season goes on into the ghost hunting, it amps up a ton and it gets very active by August, and it sets it all up for going into the haunted house season. So then we have it much more active, and it is on kind of a cycle every year. It's pretty much the same.
Now, are you very far from the Great Salt Lake?
We're probably about 20, 30 minutes away from it.
Okay, so in all honesty, if you subscribe to such things, the energy from that could help fuel the critters and entities and whatnot that you encounter, right?
Right, it could definitely do that. I haven't really tested any of the geological and the minerals and stuff in the earth, but that could be a factor as well. But we're also next to a cemetery, the town cemetery, which is fairly large, and we're very heavily known for an area of Native Americans as well. So there's a lot of factors that could kind of help out with the activity, and definitely amp it up a bit and give a reason for that location besides being a hospital of having such high levels of activity.
Very interesting.
So now I know we touched on this briefly the last time, and you guys have alluded to it tonight in the interviews. When it does become an active attraction, you do see the activity actually go on the rise.
Yes, it does. In fact, some of my most amazing and kind of far-fetched experiences have been during the haunted house attraction, mainly because we spend so much time there, and we're able to see it. But I think a huge factor is the amount of energy that comes through. People are afraid. There's so many people. We get about 20 to 30,000 every year coming through, and they're all terrified. So, and it's not just a walk through haunted house; it's a full contact haunted house attraction. So you will be grabbed, you will be touched, you will be carried off, separated from your group, and a lot of those things amp up the fear as well. So that it acts very much like a battery for the paranormal.
So these visitors are actually kind of charging, and or maybe rather the location is drawing energy from the visitors to the attraction.
Right. It's definitely a very strong theory with a lot of evidence backing it up. But again, it's still just a theory. A lot of things in the paranormal are just that, and we just continue to research and catalog and see if anything changes.
So as you guys are moving forward, of course, what are the plans for the larger facility now, Cami?
It's going to be a community center and a wellness center. So it'll be things like yoga. It'll be things like meditation classes. We have martial arts classes in there. Cooking, definitely a focus on arts. I think that is a therapeutic in itself. And a lot of things, especially in schools, for the youth, there's not a lot of focus on being creative and artistic, and it's a huge release and like I said, a form of therapy. So we'll be doing a lot of that as well. Also, we have some escape rooms that will be going in over there, and we're working on right now some virtual reality rooms. So we're going to have a holodeck.
Woohoo!
That's cool.
I can't wait. That's my favorite. I'm like, yes, it's my thing.
See, and what I hear is, you've got a full contact haunted house attraction plus an extremely active paranormal location, and you're going to be offering services to extend life. You're kind of defeating your own purpose here. You're robbing. It does, but if we can get people happy in life, at least they'll have a happier life, and if they choose to stay here, they'll scratch us a lot less when they do come to visit.
Spread the love with someone else.
Exactly.
Oh shoot, I lost it. Don't you hate that? You're about to say something and then poof, it's just gone.
and it was the most poignant, most
profound,
in-depth,
life-changing,
insightful, comment of the entire show, and it's just gone out the window.
Gone.
Just gone.
Gone.
Never,
That's it, Wendy. Mic drop.
Yep. I'm going to blame it on being a lifelong diabetic, and the dementia is setting in at this point. I'm pretty sure, when I remember. Yeah.
I hear cucumbers are good for that. Go ahead.
Ew.
Oh. So now, just kind of as a slight detour from what we're talking about now, Richard, what other projects besides Asylum 49 and of course your tours there at the Stanley, which I would love to talk to you about the Stanley. I think that would make a fascinating segment in and of itself. But what other projects are you working on from a research and from an author standpoint?
Oh, I have several projects going forward. I'm currently working on a project about the Denver Botanic Gardens, which was an interesting opportunity. You've seen the movie Poltergeist, yes?
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The original, the good one.
Yeah,
Oh, yes.
the good one. Yes.
Yes.
There is the terrific line in that movie when everything is all coming apart at the end and the bodies are popping out of the ground. And the line is, you SOB, you moved the headstones, you didn't move the bodies. You remember that?
Oh, yes.
Well,
Yes.
that's exactly what happened in Denver 100-plus years ago in Cheesman Park, where they moved the city cemetery, hired a very unreputable contractor to do it, and he ended up only moving 20% of the bodies and all of the headstones. So the City Botanic Gardens are now built on top of all those bodies. And needless to say, that property is very, very haunted, very active indeed. They're still finding body parts whenever they dig in that area today. The staff have great ghost stories. So I was able to investigate that location, which is ongoing, and I'm writing about that. I also, 2 months away from putting in a sequel to my first book, In Search of the Paranormal, which was some of my favorite cases from both sides of the Atlantic over the years. This is another volume of those cases, half British, half American, which will cover some locations. I'm writing a book about Fox Hollow Farm, home of Herb Baumeister, who was believed to be the I-70 Strangler, one of America's most notorious serial killers. I spent a week investigating, the best part of a week investigating Fox Hollow Farm with some colleagues, and that's also a project that's ongoing, and I'm writing that with the owner of the farm. So those are just three. Oh, and the Black Monk House, Black Monk of Pontefract also. I'm working on the haunted history of that house, too. Your listeners might have seen that on Paranormal Lockdown's Halloween special last year.
Okay. Very cool.
Now, I did just get done reading Lady Macbeth. I liked it. That was a cute story.
Oh, thank you for that. It was a fun, short ghost story. I like to dabble in fiction to cleanse my palate every so often.
It was, where did you come up with the idea, or did it just kind of hit you while you were sitting there thinking and you wrote it down?
Well, I've investigated quite a few haunted theaters in my time. Theaters tend to be very, very haunted, and it's not difficult to figure out why. So I just had wanted to write a story about who might actually haunt one of those theaters and why, and what would happen if they came out and met the living one evening. I've always been fascinated with ghost lights. You know, the light that they will leave on a stage. They'll tell you that the reason is that people don't fall off the edge of the stage in the dark, but they leave ghost lights on in the theaters all night. It's a superstition. Of course, the idea is that it will attract the ghosts and prevent them from making any mischief with the props and sets and so forth. So I've always found haunted theaters fascinating.
Very neat.
Now, yeah, and I was going to say, you bring up something I've never had the opportunity to ask a guest this, but you have experiences both with U.S. hauntings and British hauntings, European hauntings. Are there nuances and differences to the types of hauntings based on country of origin? I mean, obviously, the British are going to be classier with their hauntings. We've all seen. I mean, those are much better horror films. Hammer did a much better job with atmosphere and things like. No, but seriously, are there nuances to the types of hauntings that you find across the Atlantic?
I think there are perceived nuances, but I don't think there really are. And what I mean by that is, the United States is definitely less of a secular nation than the UK. So with America being a very Christian nation, we tend to hear that word demonic more and more often. The fact that it is great for ratings really helps, doesn't it? We get less of that, I think, in the UK too. So, but generally speaking, people are people, you know, and as Cami says, as in life, so in death. So I think that ghosts tend to behave in very similar ways no matter where you are. They behave like disembodied people for the most part. And that's how I've seen it in both locations, both countries.
I agree with that. And so does our brothel friend, June.
Oh, June, the brothel babe.
June is with a ghost out of Seattle, and she works at Spooked in Seattle with Ross Allison, and a high school friend of mine as well. So yeah, we get to tease her whether she's listening or not.
Well, Cami, my question then to you is, I mean, I know that you and Richard are working on, of course, the second in the Haunting of Asylum 49 series, but what other projects are you working on from a writing standpoint? And then we'll talk a little bit more about what you and Kimmy are doing there with the actual haunted attraction.
Like I said, I'm doing a couple of books with Richard. I'm just breaking in my debut novel, wasn't really a novel, but my debut book was The Haunting of Asylum 49. And so I definitely have a few ideas. Like I mentioned, I was only halfway kidding about a book on marrying into ghosts, because it was definitely a journey in itself in many ways. So it would be interesting to, I think, to put out there and show people kind of what I went through to discover a lot of the paranormal things that I do know. So that one I'm kind of toying with.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Very good.
What about the haunted attraction? I mean, now, how is that going to? I mean, it changes. The theme obviously changes every year. We've talked about that.
Right.
But what are you guys ramping up for this season? And how is it going to not necessarily how is the theme going to evolve, but how is the attraction itself going to evolve with all of this newfound square footage that you have?
Well, we're not going to expand much into the new square footage, except for our cast. Our cast is going to have some more space. Our costume room and our makeup rooms and things like that are going to have a lot more area. But one of the things that we are going to implement this year is mini escape rooms in the haunted house. That'll definitely be something for 18 and older, because it will be a room that you get locked in and you have to discover clues and let yourself out. So that's something we're going to be implementing this year.
Very cool. And what happens if you can't let yourself out? What happens? Do you have to stay at Asylum 49? Do you become part of it like the house on Haunted Hill? Do you get sucked into the walls?
That would be fun, but I don't think that we can legally do that. I'd probably border on kidnapping. So I think we'll have to let them out within a certain time frame.
It's Utah. Nobody's getting out of Utah anyway.
Once you're here, you're here. Might as well spend it in a haunted hospital, huh?
Exactly. Someplace that's fun, where you can then take up art and cooking and yoga and all these other great things that you're going to
do.
Gardening as part of the community center, which I think is a great idea. I love the concept of taking something that is part of the community, because obviously this place has a history there in the community. It has ties and it has roots. So taking that, and instead of just leaving it derelict and standing empty, but actually, pardon the pun here, but breathing life into it and giving it a new life and touching other people's lives with it. I think that's just a great concept that you and Kimmy have put together, and it's a great business concept. It's a business model. Now, my question is this a business model that could be? And this is my marketing background and my branding and my business development background coming into play. Is this a business model that could be replicated in other locations with historic haunted locations?
It definitely could. I think that, again, as in real estate, I think location is very important for a project like that. I can't tell you how many times somebody just randomly walking in the building, say from like the cable company or the power company or something like that, walks in and says, "Oh, I was born here." So there's a lot of deep ties to the hospital and the community, and it's far-reaching as well. We've had people come from Colorado who've been born here and have moved and have talked about it in Colorado or the other surrounding states, even out of the country. So I think that it could be definitely replicated anywhere, but you have to have the kind of support and ties within your community to make it actually work.
Now, and I may be putting you on the spot here, and I don't mean to. What type of support did you guys find there for what you were doing? I mean, because it seems like you might be walking a line. You're talking about something that's kind of a new business model and what you're trying to do with the community center, and then also having, oh my God, they got a haunted house attached to it. I mean, were you guys received by the community, or did you find some standoffishness?
At first, no. It took several years for them to open their arms and welcome us. We were greeted with a lot of resistance because a lot of people don't really understand what's going on as far as a haunted house attraction. To them, it's seen. It's not necessarily the most positive or even religious and Christian thing to be doing. But when they get inside and they see what's happening within the youth of our small town, when they see how many people volunteer and come together to make this happen. I mean, we have, a cast of 100 kids just in our small town. And their parents come and their brothers and sisters come. And then that brings in other people. And we make long-lasting friendships within the walls of a haunted house attraction, where there's blood and gore and anything we can disturb you with. So once you get in there and you see what's happening, people have been a lot more willing to open up and accept it, and even love it.
Do you find that you guys get returning visitors and that they're bringing new people back with them every year? And I mean, do you see the foot traffic growing in that way?
Yes, we do. Every year we see it growing. We see the same people that have come for 10 years, and they bring their friends, and other people hear about it, and they come from different states. Like I said, I mean, there's people who come every year from the surrounding states just to go to the haunted house attraction because they love it that much. And it's not necessarily always the people that they get to meet. It's just something different. We're very unique in that we're new every year. We tear down and build new every single year, which is it's not something that's common in the haunted house attraction. And then we're pretty scary. We're good at what we do. We use all of the different types of fears, because not everybody's afraid of the same stuff. So you have to use different things. And I think it helps that we're haunted and everybody knows it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now, looking at the different types of investigations that you guys have done there, you mentioned the spirit box and things that you have heard and things that have come back to you. If you could pinpoint maybe one entity / spirit / haunting that is unique or is almost kind of, I don't want to say flagship or mascot of Asylum 49. Do you have an entity? You talked about, you talk to certain locations and they've got the lady in white, or they've got the gray man, or they've got the shadow figure, and things like that. Does Asylum have an entity that is prevalent more often, or maybe has a stronger historical tie to the location?
As far as historical goes, we do have one who we've been able to find in history. His name is Wesley, and he is at the end of the maternity hall. He lives in room 6, or 666 as the cover shows. But he's definitely one in history. But as far as, I'll give you a little bit of background with him before I move on. But we discovered that he lived and died in that room, and he died from complications with Alzheimer's. And we've been able to verify that with his family. We've talked to his family on many occasions, and they verified it. Everybody's preference of entity and their favorite spirit at the hospital differs. So some people really like the kids. We have Jessica and Christian who like to hang out in the chapel or the conference room. It just depends on what everybody knows is that room. And then we have Sarah and Tabitha who like to stick around the nursery. And they're just fun-loving kids that have a lot of energy, that really like to communicate, they'll do things like move flashlights or toys, play with trucks, stuff like that. And then we have probably the most famous, and he's a little bit more of the darker nature, and that's the Guardian. And he's over in the lab area and the emergency room area. And we haven't been able to track him in history, but from his characteristics, what we've been able to see about him is that he's very much a bully, and he likes to frighten people, and he will take on the biggest alpha, I guess, in whatever group you're in. And a lot of times he can get aggressive. So I think we have a few poster children or stars at Asylum.
Now, you mentioned that the last one that you were talking about, I think, the Guardian, kind of a unique name to give someone who seems to be causing more problems than he's actually guarding.
Right, and here's the thing: he was the one who told us that that's what he wanted to be called. So it's been kind of an experiment and a journey in research and finding what exactly he's guarding, whether it's the location or we suspect secrets.
Interesting.
Yeah, he is an interesting fellow.
Mm-hmm. Now, Richard, what was your favorite encounter or favorite entity there?
Oh, I do like the Guardian. He and I got into it a little bit the first time I lived and stayed there. I do like Wesley as well. I have a great deal of sympathy for somebody that was stricken with a condition as cruel as Alzheimer's is. Mm-hmm. So I would say I feel a little bit protective of him, as do most of the people that are at the asylum. The children also, as Cami said, very, very playful and bashful. They like to run around and do all those kind of things. I don't think I could just pick one. And I don't think Kim and Cami could either. It'd be like asking which is your favorite kid.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Whichever one hasn't annoyed you most really at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're looking forward to meeting new ones on the other side, because I know for sure that there are some new people that we haven't met yet over there.
Very, very nice.
It takes a great deal of time.
These things
trying to figure out who these people are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sentence by sentence, word by word, and piecing it together for years. It takes a little bit of time to figure out who's there.
Once again, thank you for sitting there for hours and hours and weeks and years and figuring all that out for us.
Aw. It's our pleasure. It's our pleasure. It's a lot of fun.
Those guys on TV, they're always going, "Did you hear that?" And I'm like, I didn't hear anything. And I put my headphones on and listened to it 4 times, right?
Yeah, oh boy. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The reviewing of evidence. Yeah, it's a good time.
Yes.
Very grueling, monotonous at times.
Mm-hmm. Richard, I saw where you had seen The Conjuring 2, and you had a little issue with it, and I had kind of wanted to ask you about it, that there was a man who did a whole lot more research and was more active than Ed and Lorraine were on that. Am I on the right movie?
Yeah, I do like The Conjuring 2 a great deal. I just wish it was they didn't try and pass it off as anything approaching fact. Until was one of the cases that I was fascinated with from childhood, because I'd read Guy Lyon Playfair's book about it, This House is Haunted. And if you're listening to the show and you haven't read that book, buy it before you buy one of mine. I mean, this is one of the defining books of paranormal research, and it studied one of the most elusive and fascinating poltergeist cases from beginning to end. Mm-hmm. So Guy Lyon Playfair and Maurice Gross, his colleague, they lived with that family as they were tormented and tortured by the antics of this poltergeist called Fred. They provided them support, they provided them with some financial assistance, all that kind of stuff. And then you watch The Conjuring 2, which again feels the need to add demons because good box office.
Right, yes.
And what you end up thinking is that Ed and Lorraine Warren, who spent less than a day at that location, it's suddenly been made into their story. And it frankly makes me livid that the men who spent so many days of their lives helping the family and documenting the case and investigating it have been sidelined, and 2 people who are at best peripherally involved have taken center stage. I think it's grossly unfair.
It's very interesting. Yeah, it's too bad they couldn't stick a little bit closer to it, but yay. Like you said, it's Hollywood and big box office.
I'm going to say, wait, you're telling me that Hollywood embellished something? What the hell are you all talking about?
It happened.
Never.
It's kind of like Trump took over it or something.
Well, it's another good instance in which, if you want the truth, read the book.
Right. Yes.
Guy Lyon Playfair has lectured on this for decades. The case is every bit as interesting and fascinating today as it was back then, especially when you consider the number of witnesses, including police officers, journalists, photographers, and all that kind of stuff. But the Hollywood version, unfortunately, I don't mind them playing fast and loose with the truth to tell a good narrative to a certain degree. I do mind when somebody gets credit they shouldn't at the expense of somebody that should.
I agree completely. And that was who wrote the? It was the Enfield incident, right? Or
it's called This House is Haunted.
Oh, okay.
Still in print, and that was written by Guy Lyon Playfair.
Okay. Very nice. And Enfield, England, correct? Britain?
It is Enfield, England. It's a suburb of London.
Neat. Very neat. Thank you.
Yeah, cannot recommend that book highly enough to anybody interested in this field.
Mm-hmm.
And you said it's still in print and still available?
It is. I mean, one nice thing, I guess, is that The Conjuring 2 hopefully didn't hurt the sales of that book. I hope it gave it a shot in the arm, as the case. Mm-hmm. But there was a 3-part miniseries called The Enfield Haunting, made by Sky TV in the UK.
Yes.
That also played fast and loose with the true story, to the point where Mr. Playfair was less than happy with it based upon the interviews I've seen with him. But at least it showed the amount of work that he and Maurice Grosse put in.
Well, that raises kind of a question and an issue when it comes to paranormal investigation and research. It is a little bit easier, don't you think, to play fast and loose because you are dealing solely with perspective and theory, as Cami said, most of the time.
Well, I think that keeping an open mind is key, but whatever your opinion is, it can't be denied when somebody spends hours, days, months, sometimes years working on a case. It can't be denied that they put their boots on the ground. Then
right.
You get somebody who's perhaps more of a, shall we say, celebrity, who swoops in to pick up the accolades, and history remembers their version. There's a degree of that we see again with the TV shows, where you have investigators that are putting extensive amounts of time into certain cases, and along comes your 45-minute TV show, and suddenly they become the people that broke the case or worked on the case. I think it's unfortunate, and I do wish that people would delve a little bit deeper into some of these cases.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I do think, speaking both in a respectful tone, but also in an objective tone, as a someone who came out of journalism and broadcast journalism and documentary filmmaking. I mean, Ed and Lorraine Warren, I think you have to recognize them as being in the foreground of paranormal research and demonology and paranormal investigation, and kind of the whether you want to christen them, the godparents of paranormal investigation in the U.S. or not. I think they kind of do stand up there in that regard. But I think above and beyond anything else, they did find a way, whether intentionally or unintentionally, of finding themselves in cases that did thrust them in the limelight.
Well, I think, and I don't mean to speak ill of Ed Warren because he's not around to defend himself, and Lorraine, by all accounts, is a lovely lady. But looking again, as you say, objectively, a number of things do strike me about the Warrens, and one is that, boy, did they find a lot of demonic cases.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. A lot.
Quite the coincidence, that, isn't it?
Woo, man, I would have hated to have been them, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just statistically, they should have found a lot. They were great. They handled publicity well.
Yes.
They worked, I know, with a number of writers on a number of books, and some of those writers have come forward and said that there was significant embellishment. I believe Robert Curran was the last one that I read about, and he said that Ed Warren essentially told him, just make it scary, as opposed to sticking to the facts of the case. The truth is, we'll never know. But the movie studio, I think Warner Brothers, they're making a substantial amount of money out of these cases, and you've got to be very careful about what sells in Hollywood. You need dark entities, don't you? You need, you're not going to get a Hollywood blockbuster out of one of those happy hauntings where somebody returns because they were, very content in a location and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I love a good ghost story, don't get me wrong, as much as the next guy or gal, but I like to know what's fiction and I like to know what isn't. And I think those lines are becoming increasingly blurred these days.
Oh, yes. People seeking their 15 minutes of fame and blowing it all out of proportion.
One of the things that I find intriguing, especially talking about Ed and Lorraine, because I do not speak ill of Ed, and Lorraine is not in good health. I do think that they were groundbreaking in many ways, and I think that they have set themselves apart. And I don't want anyone who's listening to think by any means that I'm throwing any type of shade at them in any form or fashion, to use a millennial term. I'm trying to look at things I'm trying. Yeah, you got it. Cami got it.
I got it. Yeah,
I knew what you were talking about. I wasn't gonna.
Look at you.
Woo!
I work for
reloading with the millennials.
I work for a top 40 radio station. Yeah, I get the whole shade thing. It's like, oh God. No, I'm not. I'm trying to look at things very objectively. Going back to the conversation that Wendy and I were having before you guys came on about the documentary film that I watched last night, that I interviewed the filmmaker on my show this morning on the radio station. He did an excellent job of being objective. He did not choose one side. He interviewed both sides and let them tell their stories. And I think that is where, in my mind, when you look at things like Andrea Perron's story, and that is made up the foundation. I'm not going to say the story, but the foundation of The Conjuring. And you look at the infield story, and you look at Bill Bean's story, and Hollywood is going to take these stories and they're going to embellish them, and they're going to make them marketable, and they're going to sensationalize them. But that's where a good investigator, researcher, and a documentary film crew could actually tell the story the way it needs to be told, objectively, so that you're getting every perspective of the story. And that was what led me to do the documentary film about the Mothman sightings there in Point Pleasant, was to actually give it some objectivity and to also bring back the humanity to the story, so that we were hearing from the actual eyewitnesses, not saying this is what you saw, but saying tell me what you saw. And there is a huge freaking difference in an interview in saying, so this is what you saw, and leading them, or saying, now tell me what you saw and what you experienced. And that is a totally different.
That is very true.
That's a totally
very
different
true.
Story. And that is the difference.
Very, very true.
That's the difference in saying, okay, we're going to tell people what you saw, and we're going to make it look like this, and we're going to put the ugly demonic nun in the background, and this is what this is going to be, as opposed to bringing the individuals forward and saying, now tell me what you experienced. And when we did the documentary film about Mothman, the interviews were long takes. There was no editing. You had me ask the question, and then you had the person tell the entire answer before we went to the next question. There was no editing and splicing so that the answer sounded like anything was staged or they were giving the answer we wanted. It was literally them telling the story. And I think from the paranormal standpoint, there needs to be more of that, because I think that lends credibility and validity to this field as opposed to reality TV, which unfortunately is the only thing that this field has going for it right now.
Well, and I think
that's
also
true. Richard, do you want to do some documentaries?
You have to catch the situation before all of the principal players die.
Yes.
And in a case like that, again, Ed is not around to defend his side of the story, nor is Morris Gross anymore. Sadly, Morris passed on also. So, and I'm also willing to bet that after so many years, quite a few of the key individuals, their memories are somewhat hazy on the subject. We're looking at decades have passed since the inception of the case. So I think that in order to try and get to the truth or a close approximation of it, perhaps not wait so long, But of course, Hollywood's not interested in the truth; they're interested in cash flow. And I thought The Conjuring 2 was a great movie. I really, really did. I just wish they called it something else.
Well, and I preferred The Conjuring 2 in some ways to The Conjuring, in all honesty. As a film. They were, but as a film, I actually enjoyed watching The Conjuring 2 a little bit more than I loved the first one. I do. I own both of them, but I thought, I don't know, there was something about the second one that captivated me from the very beginning. I thought The Conjuring had a little bit more of a slow build-up. The Conjuring 2 kind of threw you right in. And maybe it was using the Amityville as the hook to get you in. That may be what it is. I don't know. But it definitely, both very well made. James Wan, as far as I actually enjoy watching Wan's films because he actually, while he does sensationalize and embellish the true stories that he works on, he's still a damn good storyteller.
He is, and I have high hopes for what he's going to do with Aquaman, which is what he's doing now.
Which I find it very interesting they chose him to do Aquaman. But I think he can bring. I mean, if he can tell that story like he tells a horror story, then there's some damn good potential for that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he has great visual flair. He's an excellent storyteller. I love the first Insidious movie. I think it's one of the best stories ever put on film.
Yes,
there are some genuine scares in that movie. But I also love the fact that it's fiction, and they're very clear that it's fiction. It's not based on a real case.
Right.
And I'll also say this, that during my years of investigating, I've seen a number of cases where we had people who were very troubled by what they thought was activity in their house. And when I would look at their movie collections, I would see a lot of these kind of movies, which have definitely fueled their imagination.
Yes.
And have done these folks no favors. People who were genuinely living in fear at home, genuinely suffering, and honestly, not all of them were able to separate reality from fantasy. So there's a very real danger, whether it's with, as we say, reality TV or Hollywood movies, of just that stuff does leach its way into your mind. I mean, bringing it back to Asylum 49. This is the only place I've investigated, I think, where you wander around and you can go into the restroom as an adventure because you have to pass a guy in an electric chair with his eyes popping out of his head, and there are zombies in every doorway. And of course, they're not real. But even so, there's that small part of your mind that is the scared kid, the one that grew up on those horror movies, enjoying being afraid. Sometimes your imagination is your own worst enemy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely, yes.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And, my movie library is chock full of horror films because, for me, that's relaxation.
Mine too.
I've told people before, actually, last week's program, I said, I'm one of the few people that you can talk to who will fall asleep to The Exorcist because I love the theme song. I love that music. I love the background music. I can fall asleep to The Exorcist in a heartbeat, no problem, no nightmares, nothing like that. But it's also desensitized me to some degree. Somebody's like, "Did you hear that?" Yeah, I heard it. It doesn't bother me. I don't think a thing really give a second thought about those types of things. I own Insidious 1, Insidious 2. I'm not so fond of Insidious 3. I own Sinister 1, Sinister 2, The Conjuring 1, The Conjuring 2, Annabelle. I own the next Annabelle. The list goes on and on. I've got foreign horror films, American horror films. Doesn't matter. I play them in the background when I'm working. I play them in the background while I'm doing laundry. I play them in the background while I'm cooking. That's just my thing. That's my relaxation. It puts me in my zone.
Well, and I think that as with haunted houses, and by that I mean the haunted house haunts, as Asylum 49 is, that are done commercially, it's that same feeling we all have. We like to be scared, but know in the back of our mind that we're safe.
Right.
It's the reason that we do enjoy jump scares, and it's the reason we do enjoy walking through those dark corridors. Now at Asylum 49, every so often, what jumps out at you may not be one of the actors, which to me just makes it even more fascinating and exciting. But human beings love to be scared in a safe environment. It's one of the ways in which we calm ourselves, isn't it?
Yes.
And there are of course lots of lots of psychologists will tell you that horror movies and so forth, we're all rehearsing for our own death. We're getting comfortable with the idea that that we're one day going to die. So I'm a huge fan of horror movies too. I'm a huge fan of the Conjuring movies. And again, my feelings towards the second one are purely down to its accuracy.
Now, we've talked to you guys. We're coming down. We've got like 10 minutes left in the show, and I want to kind of divide this last 10 minutes into this. And we've talked a little bit, Richard, about the projects that you're working on, and Cami, the same thing for you. But for you, Richard, what is the very next forthcoming project that folks will be able to purchase and follow your work with?
Oh, that will be Spirits of the Cage, which comes out here in the U.S. in September and in the U.K. and Europe in October. And that details the week I spent living in England's witches' prison, a prison dating back 300 or 400 years to the English witch trials, which it sounds like a setup for a joke. I promise you it isn't. But I spent a week living there with a Catholic priest who's also a paranormal investigator, a nurse, and a pawnbroker's assistant, and we investigated.
Are you sure
that? It up.
That sounds like a joke walking into a bar. Do the three of you walk into a bar as well?
The three of us walk into a haunted prison and the door slams itself shut behind us. So that is my next book, and that's available for pre-order now at all of the usual places, whether it's Amazon or your local bookstore, published by Llewellyn, and gave me an opportunity to not only get imprisoned again, I seem to have done a couple of haunted prisons, but also to delve into the persecution of witches and learn a lot about that side of things. So I hope your listeners check that out.
Actually, I would be fascinated to get a copy of that and bring you on just to discuss that book.
If you send me a message after the show, I'll be happy to hook you up with Llewellyn's publicist, and I'm sure my co-author and I can come back on the show.
Is that, let's see, I actually used to do some work with Llewellyn's publicist. Who is that? Her name is on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, I will.
I don't know if she wanted to wear her name over the air.
No, that's fine. Yeah, no, I was going to say, I think I know who you're talking about. One of my former clients actually published with Llewellyn, so I actually worked in conjunction with Llewellyn's publicity department. Yeah, so I will. I'll send you a message.
I'm sure they'd be very happy I'm sure they'd be real happy to send you a copy of the book. It was a very fun one to write.
Awesome. Wendy, make a note. Remind me. Make a note. Remind me.
Oh, you're going to get reminded, buddy. Just for that next guest, or not the next guest, but that one that we haven't heard anything from.
We still haven't, have we?
No.
Okay, do me a favor. Remind me of that one tomorrow. I'll get on top of that one.
Okay.
Oh, I hate lazy publicists. I know how to do my damn job. I don't know why they don't know how to do theirs. But no, I would love to have you come on and talk about that. The history itself, I think, is fascinating, but especially the history of the persecution of witches, the misunderstanding of witches, and witchcraft and Wicca and paganism and those types of things. I would love to have you discuss that. Yeah,
we'd be happy to come on and talk about it all.
I know Wendy would too.
Oh, golly, yeah. That's very interesting. Ooh, and maybe ley lines too, because that's a favorite of mine.
You did not ask about a ley line under Asylum 49.
I told you I have diabetic dementia. Leave me alone.
I kept waiting.
Well, there isn't. It's disappointing, but there is not.
Right.
or a brothel, unfortunately.
Oh, brothel. Yeah.
Yep, the brothel. Mm-hmm.
Right. No brothel.
It would crack me the hell up if at some point we found out that it had been a brothel before it had been a hospital. And I would if that is the case, I would actually pay to send June and Russ there to investigate just because.
Well,
I'll look it up and see if I can find some brothels.
It's actually a combination. I believe the correct term is brothel.
Brothel. Yes, that's it. Brothel, yeah. I'm going, but it is Utah.
That's a good one.
Yes, it is.
It is Utah. They allowed for multiple wives. Did you really need a brothel? And at the same time, you had multiple wives, so yes, you needed a brothel. So that's my Utah Mormon joke, which actually, Wendy, you did not play the disclaimer, so that is on you with your diabetic dementia. We're actually one of the few talk shows that has a disclaimer solely because one of the co-hosts cannot keep his comments anywhere politically correct. And that's me.
Oh,
so,
I am not surprised, though. Not one bit.
So now,
You're
Cami,
edgy. Throwing shade.
I was covering our rear
like
ends.
that. I am. I know. I'm walking that line. Gen Y, Gen X, millennial. Cami, the projects that you have. Of course, you're working with Richard on the second edition, the second story, as it were, of Asylum 49. Mm-hmm. What's going to be the next product, next book that they're going to? Will it be that one, or are you working on something solo that's going to be out?
I'm working so far on the ones with Richard, the World's Most Haunted Ships, and Volume 2 of The Haunting of Asylum 49. And I'm also, I'm really busy. I'm starting in fall, going to school for forensic science.
Are you?
We're
good
also
for you. That's
yeah.
awesome.
Right. So then we have Asylum and the new wellness center and everything. So I'm super booked, and I just wait to see what comes. I'm very spontaneous, so I'll just take on whatever project is at the forefront or has a contract and deadlines. So that's the way I'm rolling right now. Richard gave me that one earlier.
Are you an adrenaline junkie? Are you just waiting to see what deadline is handed next, and you go, oh shit, I got to get this one done. Oh great, this is my new project.
I work under pressure well, I guess.
Now, from a standpoint of how folks can follow and get in touch with each of you, Richard, first of all, how can our listeners, if they want to reach out to you, maybe they've got a story they want to share, something they want you to investigate, or maybe they want to just go ahead and talk to you about purchasing
Sure.
your books. How can they follow?
Online at richardestep.net, or come see me on Facebook under Richard Estep Author. I love talking to people that are into this kind of stuff.
Fantastic.
Cami, how about you?
Right. It's the same thing as we have all of our social media. Richard does as well. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I have a Snapchat. I have a website, CamiAndersen.com. And remember, if you search for me, it's Cami Andersen, Andersen, not Owen.
Oh, did I get that wrong? Okay.
Well, thank you guys so much for being with us tonight. Richard, I want to get with you, and Wendy will remind me, we'll get with the Llewellyn's publicist. We want to get you on to talk about your time in the witch's cell. Kind of sounds like when I was married. I won't go there. And then, Cami, we're going to get you back on to talk about your projects as well. Maybe get you back on right around the time that the haunted attraction is going to be ramping itself back up, and we can talk about that.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and get you guys on individually to talk. But thank you guys so much for being on the show tonight, and I apologize again for the technical difficulties early on. Skype is a wonderful, wonderful pain in the ass, a gift from the technological gods. Mm-hmm. So thank you guys. We will be in touch. And Wendy, what song is taking us out tonight? Because I know you, as a program extraordinaire, mm-hmm. have got us something.
I figured we would do the Late Night Callers, a local indie band out of Kansas City, and do their song Calaveras.
Guys, thank you so much for being with us. We will have you back on very, very quickly. It's always a pleasure.
We're looking forward to it.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night and a good week. Yes, you guys too.
Alrighty.
Wendy, remind me.
Travis.
Remind me.
It's already done.
Llewellyn publicist.
It's already done.
Llewellyn publicist and Nick Redfern. I've got to get on them.
Mm-hmm.
They have not sent us what we need.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's Cat Sanborn you want to talk to.
That's who.
Cat
that's
Sanborn.
it. Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
I knew it. I knew the name. Yes. Thank you, Richard. I was like, it's right on the tip of my tongue. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Have a great night.
Give Cat a shout.
Yes. Everyone have a great evening. We will be back next Wednesday. Wendy, who's our guest next Wednesday night?
It is Becky Ray of Ghosts to Go-Go from Kansas City. She does that.
Ghosts to Go-Go.
Yes, she does the local. She's kind of theatrical, and they get up and they tell ghost stories. She's quite the historian, and I thought I'd bring her on to entertain us for a bit.
Sounds fun to me.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like a plan. Everyone have a great Wednesday evening and a great rest of the week. Wendy,
Yep.
Remind me. I will be checking my email. I need reminders. I am old and growing older every second.
And mentally impaired at times. I understand. It's okay.
Many, many times.
It's
Off goes the song.
Okie dokie then. I'm going to play the song now, and you can hang out and listen or not, but I'll try to make that so our guests can listen if they're still with us. And anyway, have a good evening, everybody. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Bye, Wendy lady.
Bye.
There was a rough desert wind blowing into Los Angeles that evening. It was one of those hot, dry Santanas that come down through the mountain passes and curl your hair, make your nerves jump and your skin itch. On nights like that, every booze party ends up in a fight, and meek little housewives feel the edge of a carving knife and study their husbands' necks. Anything can happen when the Santana blows in from the desert. Anything can happen. Anything can happen. Anything can happen.
Thank you for joining us tonight. You've been listening to Mystic Moon Cafe. Join us every Wednesday from 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern. Be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. On behalf of Wendy Schindler, this is Travis Short saying have a great rest of your week. You're listening to Mystic Moon Cafe. The views and opinions expressed by guests do not necessarily reflect those of the hosts, the network, or our sponsors.
And that's all, folks.